Do you ever feel like you're constantly chasing happiness, productivity, or some vague idea of success? But deep down, you're just exhausted? Like you're spinning your wheels in a never-ending loop of trying to be more, do more, impress more, but none of it really feels fulfilling? In a world that urges us to care about everything, our careers, our image, our social media, our productivity, our goals, it seems like we never have a moment of peace. But what if the answer isn't to care more, but to care less? Today, we dive into the subtle art of not giving a by Mark Manson, a no-nonsense, counterintuitive guide to living a better life by learning how to focus only on what truly matters. In this summary, you'll learn how to let go of unhealthy pressures to be positive. Choose your struggles wisely. Embrace responsibility. Accept your limitations. And, ultimately, live a more meaningful life by giving fewer. Let's get started. 1. The feedback loop from hell. We live in an age of relentless positivity. Scroll through social media, and you'll see post after post telling you to smile more, be grateful, or manifest good vibes only. We are constantly being sold the idea that if we're not radiating happiness 24/7, something's wrong with us. But what happens when life isn't great? When you're anxious, stressed, lonely, grieving? You start to feel like you're failing at life. Not just because of the bad feeling itself, but because you feel bad about feeling bad. You think, I shouldn't feel this way. I should be more grateful. I should be happier. Other people have it worse. That second layer of guilt or anxiety, that meta-emotion, is what Mark Manson calls the feedback loop from hell. It's like being stuck in emotional quicksand. The more you struggle to escape, the deeper you sink. You're sad, and then you're ashamed of being sad. You're anxious, and then angry at yourself for being anxious. You're lonely, and then you feel pathetic for being lonely. It's a spiral, a loop, and the more energy you spend trying to chase constant positivity, the more negativity you create. So what's the way out? Radical acceptance. Accept that it's normal to feel bad sometimes. Emotions are just signals. They pass. You don't need to fix every single one. You don't need to feel amazing all the time. In fact, trying too hard to feel good is what's making you feel worse. Manson writes, the desire for more positive experience is itself a negative experience. And paradoxically, the acceptance of one's negative experience is a positive experience. It sounds backwards, but it works. When you stop judging yourself for feeling bad, when you simply allow your emotions to exist without labeling them as failures, you start to feel more balanced, more grounded. It's like emotional judo. You stop fighting the negative feelings, and they lose their power over you. Here's an example. Imagine you're nervous before a big presentation. Your hands are sweating. Your heart's racing. Instead of thinking, I shouldn't feel this way, I'm such a mess, you simply say, of course I'm nervous. This matters to me. It's okay. Boom. The loop breaks. The emotion is still there, but it's manageable. It no longer spirals. In short, don't fake positivity. Embrace authenticity. Life is messy, and real strength doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from learning how to sit with it without freaking out. So instead of trying to always be happy, try being real. Try being honest with yourself and with others. Let the uncomfortable feelings show up. Feel them, and then let them go. That's how you step out of the loop and start living more fully. 2. Choose your struggles. We all want happiness, but most of us go about it the wrong way. We think happiness comes from comfort, ease, pleasure, or freedom from problems. But here's the truth bomb Mark Manson drops. Happiness doesn't come from avoiding problems. It comes from having better problems, ones that actually mean something to you. Because you will always have problems. Life isn't a clean sheet. It's a constant cycle of challenges, setbacks, and growth. The question isn't, how do I avoid struggle? It's, what struggles am I willing to have? Let's say you dream of being a musician. You fantasize about sold-out shows, and screaming fans. But are you willing to rehearse 5 hours a day, play gigs to empty bars, hustle on social media, face rejection again and again? Because that's the price of that dream. Who you are is defined by what you're willing to struggle for. Your identity isn't shaped by what you say you want. It's shaped by what you're willing to suffer for. Everyone wants the reward. Few want the process. Think about it. Everyone wants a fit body. But not everyone wants to hit the gym at 6 a.m. when it's cold and dark. Everyone wants to write a book. But not everyone wants to sit through the lonely, grinding hours of drafting and revising. Everyone wants a meaningful relationship. But not everyone wants to do the deep, vulnerable, uncomfortable work of communication and compromise. This is the hard truth. You don't just get the reward, you get the struggle that comes with it. And if you don't like the struggle, the reward won't mean much when, or if, it arrives. So, what should you do? Instead of asking, what do I want from life? Ask, what pain am I willing to endure? That's the real compass. Do you want to build a business? Great. Are you willing to deal with uncertainty, rejection, and long nights with no guarantee of success? Do you want to travel the world? Amazing. Are you okay with sleeping in airports, budgeting every meal, and navigating foreign cities alone? Every path has a price. The trick is to find the price you're happy to pay. Manson puts it bluntly. Don't just chase pleasure. Chase meaningful pain. Not all suffering is bad. In fact, the right kind of suffering gives life flavor, depth, and purpose. It's what makes you earn your wins. And ironically, when you stop running from struggle and start choosing the right ones, you actually become happier. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. So, choose your struggles wisely, because what you're willing to suffer for is who you become. 3. Taking responsibility even when it's not your fault. Life throws curveballs, sometimes gentle ones, and sometimes ones that knock the wind out of you. You didn't ask for the heartbreak. You didn't plan to lose your job. You didn't deserve to grow up in chaos or get hurt by someone you trusted. And yet, it happened. Mark Manson makes one thing very clear. You are not responsible for everything that happens to you, but you are responsible for what you do next. This distinction is huge, because here's what many people do. They confuse fault with responsibility. They think, if it's not my fault, then it's not my problem. But the world doesn't work that way. Let's say you're walking down the street and someone drops a baby in your arms. That's not your fault. You didn't ask for it. You didn't plan for it. But now that it's in your arms, it's your responsibility. Life is like that. Things will fall into your lap, unexpectedly, unfairly, sometimes painfully. And while it's tempting to look around for someone to blame, that won't help you move forward. We don't always control what happens to us, Manson writes. But we always control how we interpret what happens to us, as well as how we respond. And that's where your power lies. Taking responsibility doesn't mean blaming yourself. It means owning your response. Let's look at a few examples. You get dumped. It hurts. Maybe it wasn't your fault. But now you have a choice. Will you spiral into resentment? Or will you learn something, grow, and move forward stronger? You're passed over for a promotion. Unfair? Maybe. But now what? Will you let it define your worth? Or will you use it as fuel to develop your skills and find new opportunities? You grew up with toxic parents. That wasn't your fault. But healing, setting boundaries, breaking generational patterns, that's now your job. Responsibility is power. And when you shift from victim mindset to ownership, you reclaim control over your life. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you. You stop giving power to people who hurt you. You stop making excuses for why you're stuck. You say, this is mine now, and I'm going to do something with it. That's not easy. But it's liberating. Because when you take responsibility, even for things you didn't cause, you give yourself the ability to change them. In every situation, you have a choice. To act, to reflect, to rise. And that's where real strength comes from. 4. Good values versus bad values. Why do some people bounce back from failure, while others collapse under the weight of every setback? Why do some people feel grounded and content, while others, with all the outward success in the world, still feel empty? Mark Manson says it comes down to this: your values. What you choose to care about, what you use to measure your life, will define not only your happiness, but your entire experience of reality. Because here's the truth: we're all constantly evaluating ourselves. The question is, by what standard? If your values are distorted or unhealthy, you'll always feel off balance, anxious, or inadequate, even when things look good from the outside. Let's break it down. Good values versus bad values. Good values are reality-based. They're rooted in things you can control. They're constructive, responsible, and empowering. Examples: honesty, telling the truth even when it's hard. Curiosity, being open to learning instead of needing to be right. Kindness, treating people with respect, regardless of status. Self-respect, holding boundaries, even if others don't like it. These are internal values. They don't rely on anyone else's approval. They don't collapse when circumstances change. Now contrast that with bad values. Bad values are built on ego, insecurity, or fantasy. They're often outside your control, which makes them fragile and dangerous. Always being liked, you can't control how others feel about you. Always being right, you'll avoid growth and defend your ego. Being famous, it's shallow, unstable, and mostly luck-based. Maximizing pleasure feels good short-term, but leads to long-term emptiness. If you build your life around bad values, you'll always be chasing, always comparing, always falling short. If you want to change how you see your problems, Manson writes, you have to change what you value and or how you measure failure and success. Measuring by the right metrics. Let's say you measure your worth by how many followers you have. One day you gain 1,000. Great. The next day you lose 500. Suddenly, your whole self-image crumbles. Now let's imagine you measure your success by how honest you are in your work. That's completely within your control. You can succeed at that every single day, regardless of outside reaction. The point is simple. The metrics you choose determine your mental state. Choose bad values, and you'll feel like you're losing even when you're winning. Choose good values, and you'll find peace even in the middle of chaos. How do you shift your values? It starts with brutal honesty. Ask yourself, what do I care about most? And is that thing actually making my life better? Am I measuring myself based on what I control or what I can't? Are my values aligned with growth, truth, and connection? Or just ego and comfort? Sometimes, upgrading your life isn't about adding more. It's about letting go of shallow goals, broken standards, and other people's expectations. Manson doesn't promise perfection. He doesn't even promise constant happiness. What he offers is clarity. Better values is equal to better problems is equal to a better life. So if you want to feel better, don't chase better feelings. Choose better values. 5. You're not special. This next idea might sound harsh at first, but stay with it, because what sounds like tough love is actually a doorway to freedom. Mark Manson says, you are not special, and that's not an insult. It's a gift. For decades, we've been told the opposite. You're unique. You're destined for greatness. You can be anything you want. It's a message that started when we were kids. And while it came from a good place, meant to build confidence, it also created a dangerous side effect: entitlement. The belief that we are owed something just for existing, that we deserve success, recognition, happiness, without effort, struggle, or patience. But the truth is, you're just like everyone else. And that's okay. Why believing you're special can hurt you. When you believe you're special, you start to expect special treatment. You think your problems are worse than everyone else's, or that your talents are so unique, you shouldn't have to fail like others do. You might even feel above criticism, too gifted to be wrong. And when things don't go your way, you crumble. Because deep down, you thought you were the exception. Entitlement closes you off to learning and personal growth. Manson writes. Why? Because if you think you already deserve the best, why work for it? Why grow? Why listen to feedback, admit mistakes, or start from zero? The mindset of being special can easily morph into fragile ego, perfectionism, or a fear of looking ordinary. The power of being ordinary. But what if you let that go? What if you accepted, truly accepted, that you're not uniquely brilliant or uniquely broken? You're just human, like everyone else. That's not depressing. That's freeing. It means you don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to be a prodigy or a millionaire by 30. You don't have to save the world or have a life that looks amazing on Instagram. You can just live, grow, learn, fail, begin again. You can focus on real growth, not curated greatness. You can focus on becoming better, not trying to appear exceptional. You can do the work in front of you, honestly, humbly, patiently. And that's where real fulfillment begins. Let go of the fantasy. Manson says most of our suffering comes from chasing a fantasy version of ourselves. The always happy, always confident, hyper-successful version. The one who never messes up, who gets noticed, who wins effortlessly. But that version? It doesn't exist. What does exist is the real you. Flawed, capable, ordinary, and extraordinarily human. When you let go of being special, you make room for something better. Authenticity, humility, growth. And ironically, that's what makes you powerful. Because the people who grow the most aren't the ones who think they're extraordinary. They're the ones who accept they're not and choose to grow anyway. 6. Embrace failure and rejection. We live in a world obsessed with more. More success, more comfort, more attention, and underneath it all, a quiet desperation to avoid anything that feels like failure or rejection. But Mark Manson flips that script. He says, if you want real clarity, real freedom, and real growth, stop chasing more and start saying no. Because the truth is, growth doesn't come from addition. It comes from subtraction. It comes from rejection. Rejection of distractions. Rejection of fake goals. Rejection of comfort when it's holding you back. Why rejection matters? Think about it. You can't say yes to everything. Every yes is also a no to something else. When you say yes to numbing out with your phone every evening, you say no to depth, creativity, or quality rest. When you say yes to always pleasing others, you say no to your own voice, your own time, your own peace. Growth demands that we choose our no's carefully and own them completely. Failure isn't the enemy, it's the process. We're taught to fear failure. But Manson says, failure isn't just a part of the process. It is the process. If you avoid failure, you avoid truth. You avoid growth. You avoid becoming who you're capable of being. The more something threatens your identity, the more you will avoid it, Manson writes. Let that sink in. The things we avoid the most, the hard conversations, the risks, the criticism, often hold the greatest potential for transformation. We avoid them not because they're bad, but because they threaten the story we've built about ourselves. I'm smart, so I shouldn't fail. I'm nice, so I can't upset anyone. I'm strong, so I don't struggle. But when you hold on too tightly to those stories, you shrink. You stop taking risks. You stop learning. You stop being real. Freedom through subtraction. Manson suggests a radical idea. Don't improve your life by adding more. Improve it by letting go. Let go of needing to win all the time. Let go of needing everyone to approve. Let go of needing life to be easy, clean, and perfectly planned. Because the most important growth often comes wrapped in discomfort. It comes when you say, this might fail, but I'll try anyway. They might not like me, but I'll speak my truth. This is scary, but it matters. And then you do it. Not for validation, not for applause, but because you're committed to becoming someone who faces life honestly. Say fewer yeses and mean them. The art of not giving a about being indifferent. It's about being selective. It's about deciding, what do I actually care about? What matters enough that I'm willing to fail for it? Everything else? Let it go. Say no. Delete it. Reject it. Because your energy, your time, and your peace are precious. And by choosing what you reject, you define what you stand for. 7. Death, the ultimate clarifier. There's one truth that cuts through every excuse, every fear, every ego game we play. You're going to die. Not someday in the abstract, but soon enough. Sooner than you think. And while that may sound grim, Mark Manson insists it's not. It's clarifying. It's one of the most powerful truths you can hold in your mind. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. The story that changed everything. Late in the book, Manson tells a deeply personal story. He talks about a friend he lost. Suddenly, tragically, one moment, that friend was full of life, making plans, laughing, dreaming. The next, he was gone. The shock of that loss shook Manson's world. But something else happened too. Everything non-essential fell away. The petty arguments, the fake goals, the mindless distractions. All of it, meaningless in the face of mortality. When he came out the other side, he saw life differently. More raw, more real, more urgent. And that's the invitation he gives to all of us. Don't wait for tragedy to remind you what matters. You have limited give. You and everyone you know are going to be dead soon. And in the short amount of time between here and there, you have a limited number of give. That's Manson's way of saying, your attention is finite. Your energy is limited. So spend it wisely. Every time you stress over someone else's opinion. Every time you chase a goal that's not yours. Every time you numb yourself instead of facing your life. You're wasting precious on things that do not matter. Death isn't just an end point. It's a lens, a way to see your life with clarity. Because when you remember that none of this lasts, you stop trying to control everything. You stop trying to win every argument. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. And you start asking better questions. What do I want to be remembered for? Who do I want to become? Really? What am I wasting my time on right now? Mortality brings meaning. We often chase purpose through career goals, achievements, relationships. But true purpose, the kind that anchors you, often comes from remembering that life is fleeting. You don't get forever. You don't even get someday. All you have is now and a small, fragile number of days ahead. And within those days, you get to choose what you fight for, what you walk away from, who you show up for, what you give a out. Death makes you honest. It strips away the noise. And it reminds you, what you do today is what your life will become. The most profound freedom. There's deep peace in accepting death, not as a fear, but as a guide. When you stop running from it, you start living for real. You forgive faster. You love harder. You create boldly. You let go of the people and pressures that no longer belong in your story. Manson doesn't romanticize death, but he does invite us to sit with it, to let it shape our choices, to use it not to darken our view, but to sharpen our focus. Because in the end, the most important question isn't how long you live, it's how deeply. Let's recap the key lessons from the subtle art of not giving a 1. Don't resist negative emotions. Let them pass. 2. Choose struggles you believe are worth it. 3. Take responsibility even if it's not your fault. 4. Adopt values that are healthy and in your control. 5. Embrace your ordinariness. 6. Learn to fail and say no. 7. Let the reality of death give you clarity. This book isn't about apathy. It's about intentional living. It's about choosing where to invest your time, energy, and heart. When you give fewer F's, you live more freely. If this summary resonated with you, consider subscribing for more audiobook-style wisdom from the world's most impactful books. Let us know in the comments what book you want to hear next. Thanks for listening, and remember, you're limited. Spend them wisely.